Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about navigating the difficult relationship. From simple disagreements to emotionally abusive behaviors, you deserve respect and kindness. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome to Love and Abuse. Been doing this since 2019, trying to help you through any difficulties in your relationship. Talk a lot about control and manipulation and emotionally abusive behaviors. And just a quick note, a lot of people don't understand what emotional abuse looks like. And in fact, they see the word abuse and they believe that it's not describing what they're going through because it has that word. But there are a lot of behaviors that fit in the emotional abuse bucket. Just one behavior, for example, might be someone who's really critical or judgmental towards you. And when you're with somebody who's supposed to love and support you and care about you and want to see you happy, but instead they're critical and judgmental and making you feel bad, then that's an abuse of your emotions. It's changing how you feel. Changing how you feel about yourself, just changing how you feel in general, and it's like a disintegration of your happiness. And I hate to see that, and it's just something that I've been coming on for years trying to share with the world, share with you, in hopes that you'll be able to identify behaviors and maybe even call them out. Hey, you're being critical and judgmental. You're supposed to love and support me. In many emotionally abusive relationships, however, saying that usually doesn't often do what you want it to do. One of the questions I tell this audience to ask, the other person, is, do you realize that what you're doing or saying is hurtful? That's such an important question, because if they don't realize it, even though they should, but if they don't realize it, it's important to ask. And even if you believe they should, even if you are crying and hurt and they know they're doing it, it's still a valid question for the primary reason of letting them know that you know that they know. Because a lot of emotionally abusive behavior happens because it can happen this way, that they pretend they don't know. They pretend they don't realize they're hurting you because they want to continue getting away with what they want to continue getting away with. So they pretend that they don't know that it's hurtful. But if you highlight it and you ask the question, do you realize what you're doing or what you're saying is hurtful? It really hurts me when you say that. Do you realize that? Getting an answer is important. They might say, well, no, I didn't realize that. And if they do say that, then that realization should be a heads up, a light bulb moment where they say, wow, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was doing that, so I have to stop doing that. I have to figure out why I do that, and I never want you to feel that way again because I love you and I care about you and I don't want you to feel that way. Great. That's a step in the right direction. So if they say, no, I didn't realize it, that should be the follow-up. Wow, now that I know, I'll stop doing it. That's great. Let's progress from here. The next answer might be, yes, I do. And then they'll probably follow it up with but if I don't, then they'll say something that's invalidating and hurtful and just makes you feel bad again because they not only know they're doing it, but they are now still trying to control or hurt you in some way. And that's just awful. I mean, it's awful all around, because if they say they know they're doing it, now you are around someone who's supposed to care about you, but they know they're hurtful to you. They know they're doing it and they're still doing it. That tells you everything you need to know as far as I'm concerned. Anyone who says, yeah, I know, doesn't matter what they say after that. Doesn't matter. That's all you need to know. Now, the third answer, and there might be more, but this is probably the third common answer you might get, is not an answer at all. It's just a response. It's just a turnaround. Like, oh, I'm hurting you. You're the one that's hurting me. You're the one that's doing all these things. You're the one that's the problem. You know, our relationship would be so much better if you would only do something different. They say something that puts you back in the spotlight, makes you feel bad, makes you responsible for all the relationship problems. Instead of saying, oh, we should really work this out because I hate arguing with you, I hate being upset, I hate that we're going through this. That is a nice answer. I hate that we're going through this. Let's fix this. Let's work this out. Let's figure it out. And that involves a mutual agreement. Let's figure this out. Great. Let's figure this out. Now, there might be a person that's primarily responsible for all the challenges, but at least you're working on it together. At least they say, okay, I do want to work things out. I do want to figure this out. But that also requires being humble and vulnerable and transparent. And someone who's being emotionally abusive, in order to be humble, they have to go to the dark side, which is something they do not want to do. The dark side for the emotional abuser is admitting that they might be wrong about something. It's an admission that what they believe to be true might not be true. That is humility. That is humbleness. And when they go to that dark side, it's going to feel very icky to them. It's going to feel like a foreign concept to most of them. I think most of them would find it very difficult to go to a place where they would have to say anything like, yeah, you know, I am causing some issues that I need to look at, or I am willing to reflect on that. That's a very dark place for an emotional abuser. It's a dark place because it's an unknown. It's a very vulnerable place. So if they're willing to go there, then there's a chance at perhaps working things out. But they have to be willing to go there. But back to that question, do you realize what you're doing or saying is hurtful? Or whatever it is, it's disrespectful, it's causing some issue with me, and I want to address it with you. Typically, it's a hurtful act that we are bringing up. But after that question, you get one of those three answers. If they don't reflect and they don't want to address that they're hurting you, like they're trying to play the turnaround game where they say, oh, I'm hurting you. No, you're hurting me. If they go in that direction, then it's basically the same thing as saying yes, because they're not addressing the question. They're choosing to skip over or deflect the question and put the spotlight back on you. Like you're under investigation, and you're always under investigation, and I'm never under investigation because I'm the detective and you're the suspect. It's always about you. So I want to keep that spotlight on you. This isn't you asking me questions. This is me asking you questions or accusing you and expecting you to defend yourself until you finally give in and admit that you are wrong. So when you're with somebody who refuses to take responsibility for their role, who refuses to apologize for things, who refuses to reflect on what they might be doing wrong or hurtful or disrespectful, if you're with somebody that does not want to address their own hurtful behaviors and just turns the spotlight back on you, then it's basically them saying, yes, I know I'm hurting you. And that's important to know. That's important to know. And what do you do about that? You can't. If somebody knows they're hurting you, then nothing you do or say will change that because they've already made a decision. They're already making that decision every time they choose to hurt you. That is a conscious choice. Even if they try to turn it around on you, you've made them aware that they're hurting you. Do you realize that what you just said to me is hurtful? And then they say, oh, I'm hurtful to you. You're hurtful to me. This is the thing that you do to me. And this is what you said to me the other day. And then they put all that energy and attention back toward you because they don't want to be in the spotlight. They want to keep you in the spotlight so that they don't have to answer for anything. And by doing that, it keeps you powerless or disempowered. Hopefully not completely powerless, but that's how it feels for a lot of people listening right now, I understand. But to disempower you is to keep you in a more submissive and controlled state. So if you stay in that state, they never have to answer to anything. And someone who never has to answer to anything, if they have good intentions, maybe we can work with that. If they don't have good intentions, we can't work with that. They refuse to answer to anything they do. They refuse to treat you with respect and kindness, and they just don't have your best interests in mind. So you can't work with that. You can only suffer with that. And that is not something anyone wants to do. You don't want to suffer with someone who is supposed to love and respect and care about you. And if they realize they're hurting you because you told them, regardless of their answer, after you ask that question, now they know for sure. 100%, they know. Doesn't matter how they answer, they know. Because after that, if they continue to do the thing that hurts you, then they are doing it fully conscious, fully aware that it hurts you. And that is something that you need to know. When somebody makes a conscious choice to hurt you, that, I mean, I don't mean to make you feel bad about that if that's what's happening to you, but if you had any question or any doubt before, you need to know this. You need to know that they're making a conscious choice to hurt you. Because if that's the case, that doesn't change. That doesn't change. And the only time I've seen that change, when they finally become humble, is when you introduce loss. And it's the loss of their control over you, and it is the loss of you in their life. When you introduce loss, you get to see one of two or many responses. One of them is a panic response. Oh crap, I promise I'll change. Whether that's true or not is a different story, but that's the panic response. Oh crap, please don't leave. I promise I'll change. And hopefully they will. Some people mean it, some people don't. Some people realize, oh, this is very serious. I do need to look within. I do need to reflect on my own behaviors. And they make changes. And some people don't. Or they will change for a few weeks or a few days. And then they're back to who they were. So there's that one response. And the other response is whatever, apathy. The other response is, oh, well, too bad, you're going to lose the best relationship of your life. I never really loved you anyway, and I'm the only one who will love you. They're going to tell you all kinds of things to make you feel bad, even though inside they're insecure as hell and wanted to control you because they never wanted to lose you. And by keeping you in their life, it makes them feel secure where they're insecure. So their version of love included keeping you in their life to make them feel secure because they are so insecure. Because people don't abuse unless they're insecure. People don't hurt other people unless they have insecurities inside of them. Or some other programming from childhood or conditioning or whatever. But it's typically an insecurity of some sort or a fear, which is, same thing. Fears and insecurities, they go hand in hand. And somebody who abuses wants to control. They want to control because they feel out of control otherwise. And if they feel out of control, it's unbearable. And they don't want to face the consequences of being out of control. They don't want to face the consequences of, a lot of them deal with fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And those insecurities, those dysfunctions can cause them to hold on so tightly to the person they're supposed to let be free, to let live and let be happy on their own terms. So they hold on to these people so tightly that letting them go feels life-ending. And so they will be more controlling if it feels like they are losing that control. So that's what happens is that, that's one of the many things that can happen in an emotionally abusive relationship is that they feel they're losing control. That's why they're nice sometimes, and then they're hurtful other times, and they're controlling or manipulative or verbally abusive or passive aggressive. There are all kinds of behaviors that an insecure, fearful, and sometimes or often desperate person will do to make sure they don't lose their grip on you. And that grip is all about, I need you to feel secure inside myself because I am so insecure. And if there is any threat of you leaving me, even my perception of a threat of you leaving me or leaving me alone because I'm so insecure inside myself, then I'm going to find a way to tighten my grip, to make things more secure for me. So you become a subject instead of a partner or a friend or a relative or whatever. So you become a survival mechanism for them instead of an equal, instead of someone who can live their life freely, making their own decisions and choosing to be with this person instead of feeling like they have to be with this person. And so I didn't mean to really get into that today because I'm going to read you this message and I'm going to talk about this, but I wanted to start the episode with that. I don't know why, but I wanted to talk about it. It was important, and I thought it would be helpful for some people out there. This message that I received, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. I got an email from someone who said they discovered the podcast, Love and Abuse, about 3 years ago, and it helped her realize that she was in a highly manipulative, emotionally and psychologically abusive relationship. She and her partner took the mean assessment. That is the workbook I talk about at the end of the show. And he scored as the highest level manipulator. They even bought the Healed Being program, which is the program that I created to help emotionally abusive people heal and change. But he read a few lessons and wouldn't retain or apply anything, and he wouldn't even take notes. And so they went, I guess they had an off and on relationship, and she tried to show him some relationship coaches online with great messages, but he couldn't even spend 5 minutes watching and reflecting. And after 3 marriage counselors and multiple attempts at couples therapy, she finally left. She said she's always gave him the benefit of the doubt and believed there was a good person deep down, but now realizes there's nothing good left. It's all an act. She discovered he treated his first wife the same way. And there were drugs and cheating and sneaking around and constant lying. The lying, she says, was the destructor of their marriage. After a number of years and some kids, she helped him build himself up from being homeless and unable to keep a job. But once he started traveling, she was put on the back burner. He was texting old flames and his ex-wife while telling her he didn't like staying on the phone. So he's basically doing all this stuff, but not really talking to his wife. She begged for communication and a partner, but she felt she had no one. And her question is about my marriage. She asked, when you were married and you discovered that you were hurtful to your wife, then after you started overcoming your toxic behaviors and hurtful patterns, how long before she believed you truly changed? Are you friends now or just civil in passing? She also asked how she could unteach her daughter the manipulative behaviors that she picked up from him. Her daughter believes her dad's lies 100%, and even though he tells her the complete opposite of what he tells other people, she still believes him. And she's in counseling, and now she's saying, I'm just curious to hear your perspective coming out the other side. All right, thanks for sharing that. I'm so sorry you went through that. It doesn't sound like you're together now. I don't think you said that. I think you said you left. And let me answer this part before I answer your question directly to me. And this part really wasn't a question, but you said the lying, there was drugs, there was cheating, and that he did that with his first wife as well. I don't often say this because sometimes it's not a true statement, but this is one of those times where if they cheated before and they cheat again, they will continue to cheat. I normally don't say once a cheater, always a cheater, because it's not always true. But once a cheater and a cheater again, at that point, you just have to accept that they will cheat. So This is important for you to know. If they cheated in the last relationship, and this person said they lied a lot in the last relationship, and there were drugs, if all of that was happening in the last relationship and it happened again in this relationship, then you have to accept that it will continue to happen in this relationship and it will happen again in the next one. Now, if he becomes enlightened, if he figures things out, if he realizes, boy, I need to change because I keep getting terrible results, great. Maybe he will figure that out. Maybe he will change. But who do we see today? We see the person today who is who they've been and is who they've been being today. That's who we see. So we have no other reference for who they could be. The only reference we have is who they've been and who they have been being up until now. And that's who they are. That's who someone is. That person is who they are. They are showing up as they are. That means you accept what you see right in front of you. That is who they are. The person that you see in front of you today is the culmination of who they've been and who they've been being with you. That is who they will be moving forward. So I think that's important to just drill into your head in case you haven't done so yet. Who someone has been and who they have been being is who they are today and will continue to be. That should be on your refrigerator. That should be the very message that you need to remember. That's who they've been. I think a lot of us have hope, and like this person said, give the benefit of the doubt. But we can't give the benefit of the doubt to someone who hasn't shown that they have the ability to improve themselves if they continue to show up in a way that is disapproving, that is untrustworthy, that is betraying, because that's who they've been and that's who they've been being. So I wanted to get that out of the way. I just wanted to make sure that if you had any thought that this person will change, remove that thought. Some people listening are saying that's unfair. You shouldn't do that. But I don't say that about someone who makes a mistake, realizes the mistake, and never does it again. Why? Because now that person is aware that they are doing harmful behavior, even if they were, for some reason, mysteriously unaware that they were doing it before. But now that they're fully aware, they shouldn't make that same mistake again. If they cheated, they should never cheat again. If they lied, they shouldn't lie again. If they are addicted to drugs and they need help, they should go get help, in this person's case. And if that is a problem in the relationship, I'm not saying that if somebody takes drugs, they should go get help. I'm just saying that if it's a problem in the relationship and you want the relationship to survive and thrive and last a long time, then we try to help ourselves so that we can improve ourselves and improve the relationship, because the relationship takes priority. The people in our lives that we're supposed to love and want to see happy, they love us back, and they are doing what they can to make sure that we're happy. So I think it's helpful to improve ourselves to make the other person happy. And I'm not saying change into somebody that you don't want to be. I'm saying change in ways that you know are good and healthy for you. And hopefully that's what the other person wants for you. And that's what we should want for other people. And so when I get a message like this, I just want to make sure that this person who wrote, and anyone that needs to hear this, that what you've seen and what you've been seeing is what you will continue to see moving forward, which means, and this is the conclusion that this person came to, she said, there's nothing good left. It's all an act. I won't say there's nothing good left, but I will say there's nothing good for you. There's nothing good left for you, because wherever this person is putting their good, it's not with you. And when somebody's not putting their good with you, that's when you need to take care of yourself, because they're not taking care of you. And so let's get to the question. She said, when you were married and you discovered that you were hurting your wife, then after you started overcoming your toxic behaviors and hurtful patterns, how long before she believed you truly changed? And she has a second question too, which I'll answer in a moment. In case you don't know, in case you never heard me talk about it, I used to be an emotionally abusive person. I used to be critical. I used to be judgmental. I used to be righteous, not in an arrogant way, but in a covert way. I had narcissistic tendencies. And just like I was saying before, I was highly insecure. I was so fearful of another person showing up the way I didn't want them to show up, which would alter my reality and make me feel like things weren't going my way because things needed to go my way at that time, because I was so insecure that if they didn't go my way, then I would feel insecure. And insecurity made me feel like emotional death was occurring. I didn't want to experience that. I believed I needed to control. I believe I needed to be judgmental and try to control the actions of my partner. I don't speak about that with any pride. I feel awful for how I treated my partners in the past. And what this person's asking is, when my ex-wife, when I was married, my previous marriage, when I discovered my own hurtful patterns, how long before she believed that I truly changed? And the quick story behind that, it was not a quick story then, but the quick story behind that is, one day I sat down after our separation. We were still working on our relationship. We still wanted it to work. One day, during the time I was alone, I asked myself, how would I feel if I were my wife and I was over there looking at me as my wife, and he was over there looking at me, giving me that look, or being mopey, giving me the silent treatment, making me feel guilty for making decisions that I wanted to make for myself? How would that feel if I were her? And that was the first moment, the first light bulb moment I had, that the first step into empathy that I took, the big step into empathy that I needed to take in order for me to feel even a 0.1% of what she felt the whole time we were together. That one step into empathy changed everything for me, and I started realizing just how awful I was, how hurtful I was. I felt immediate shame. I felt immediate guilt. And I asked myself, how could you do this to somebody that you're supposed to love? And right then and there, I felt like vomiting because I felt so bad. Then I'm not trying to paint myself as a victim or anything, because I was the perpetrator. I was the person doing harm, and she didn't deserve it. And that was the first time I realized it, near the end of our marriage. I realized I was doing this stuff. And how did I not know this before? Because I never knew it. And I was operating on my insecurities and my old coping mechanisms, my survival mechanisms. And when you do that, you end up doing dysfunctional behaviors, and sometimes emotionally abusive behaviors, sometimes even worse, like physically abusive behaviors. I never did that, but I was certainly hurtful in so many ways. And so that moment of realization, I felt so sick. That was something that I said, I can't ever be that way again. Now, I didn't know what was causing these behaviors, but it was the first, again, light bulb moment that told me that I needed to address something inside of me, because I shouldn't be treating the people I love this way. And if I really do love her, then I should want her to be happy. And if I want her to be happy, what does that look like? And that started my entire journey of changing who I was and becoming more and more healed every day. And I even refused to get into another relationship until I figured this out, because I didn't want to bring this virus, this emotional virus, into the next relationship. I felt pathetic. I felt disgusting. I was that person. I was the person who hurt those he loved, and I didn't realize I was doing it until that one moment. And from that moment on, I was committed to changing and healing. And it took many years to get over most of the emotional triggers that I used to have. It took many years because emotional triggers, they sneak up on you. It's like, oh, that's still there. I didn't know that. And now I have to deal with it, which is good, because I don't want that to happen again, because I don't want it to ruin my relationship, and I don't want to walk around in a low level state of trigger all the time, which is how it used to feel. And now I'm in a much calmer, more peaceful place inside myself. And I just feel so much different. I feel like an entirely different person. And when I look back at who I was, I see this pathetic, insecure, desperate man who sure had a lot of good qualities, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter if 99% of my qualities were great, because that 1% of who I was ruined everything and hurt people. And so there's a little backstory. I've talked about it before. I don't hide that fact that I've been in that space, in that place, and others have dealt with my emotionally abusive behaviors. But perhaps that's why I know so much about it. I've done it. I've also been on the other side of it. And as far as I'm concerned, if it happened to me, it happened to me because I did it to others. And so what goes around comes around. So I accept that. And so this person, let me get back to this person. She asked, how long did it take before your ex-wife believed that you truly changed? Here's the thing. When I changed, we were still separated, but she came back for a visit to find out if we're going to be able to work through this. And she saw changes immediately. Did she believe them? Maybe, maybe not, but she noticed the changes. She told me, yeah, you're different. I don't recognize you. You're so different. So she noticed the changes immediately because I was a different person. This is what happens. This is what I teach in Healed Being. You become a different person. You aren't the same person. You don't react the same. I mean, the emotional abuser who heals and changes, they don't react the same. They don't, they talk differently. They support you in ways that you don't expect. And I don't mean like they act it out or, fake it. You actually feel and see and hear a difference in someone who has truly changed. And they own it like I just did. I owned everything that I've done in my life. And if anybody ever pointed out, you were a jerk, you were abusive to your ex-wife and all your partners before that, you don't deserve my respect. If they ever said that, I would say, I honor that. I honor that because you're right. You are right that I hurt those people. And if you don't want to accept the person I am today, I honor that. That is your right. That is something that you need to follow in your heart, because I will never, ever try to change someone else's mind again. I'll never try to convince you that I'm better now, I'm healed. I'm not that person. I'm not the person who wants to convince you of anything. I want you to come to your own conclusions. That's where I feel I've changed a lot, is that I'm now accepting people as they are, who they are. And if they choose to be with me, I love it and enjoy the time we have together. But if they also choose not to be with me, I honor it. And that is different than the person I used to be. The person I used to be had a fear of abandonment. I can't let you go. I can't let you go. I have to be around you. You have to be with me. I'm not that person anymore. So when somebody wants to say, call me out and say, you did these things and you're awful, I can say, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I will also say, and I'll never be that person again, because that person makes me sick. I don't want to be that person anymore. That person hurt people that didn't deserve it. And I never want to travel that road again, because that's not who I am anymore. And nobody deserves to be treated like that. And so I've had that happen. People have written reviews for this show saying, you've been abusive before, so I'm not going to listen to you. And that's fine. I totally get it. I believe you should follow your heart and only follow people that you trust, that you know have your best interests in mind. And definitely tune me out because I honor the path that you need to take for yourself. And so that's one big difference, is that a person who is truly healing and changing from being the perpetrator of hurtful behavior is not going to act the same, react the same, respond the same. They feel different. And if you ask my wife, she's going to say, I can't believe you were ever emotionally abusive. That's the kind of response that you should get from somebody who sees a change. I can't believe that you're the same person. I can't believe you were ever that person. So the change is night and day. So when this person asks me, how long before she believed you truly changed, my ex-wife realize, wow, you have gone through something. You are different. And that was pretty much right away. As soon as we saw each other again, she was probably asking herself, who are you? And so that's a big clue. And I've heard from victims of emotional abuse will write to me and say, hey, so-and-so, my partner says they're changing, and I do notice some things, but it still doesn't feel like they're truly changing. Like I don't always feel good after conversations, or it just feels strange. Like they're not changing, even though they're not doing the behaviors anymore. I still don't feel like they're actually going through true healing and change. And most often what happens is that when they fake it, this is what you feel. When someone's faking it, you will feel like they are going through changes, but it doesn't seem like they're actually healing. It just seems like a behavioral thing, like they're changing behaviorally. But you still feel or sense something not right, or not healed, or not going in the right direction. So if you feel that and the other person says, I'm healed now, I'm better, and the things that used to trigger me don't trigger me anymore, so I'm good now. If they say that and you feel what's called an incongruence, which means their actions don't match their intentions, or their words don't match their actions, there's something off. The way they look at you doesn't match what they said to you. There's something off. There's a cognitive dissonance of some sort. If you feel that, then there is something off. And they haven't truly changed and healed yet. Maybe they're working on it. Maybe they really are going through some stuff, but they have more to learn. But this person asked, how long before she believed I changed? And you won't believe it until you experience it yourself. And what my ex-wife experienced was me showing up completely different. And so my wife came back for a few days, and she just noticed that I was not the same person. And she didn't know what to do with that. Now you might think, well, didn't she really feel close to you then? Wasn't she more connected to you after that? Well, here's the secondary part of this, is that when someone has been exposed to emotionally abusive behavior, or any abusive behavior for a period of time, they will eventually seal their heart shut. It'll be like Fort Knox, and there's no going back. She reached her threshold. This is what happens with victims of abusive behavior. They reach their peak toleration point, and they are no longer tolerant. They will no longer allow that behavior into their life. Not that they were allowing it before, but they have now shut the gate and locked it tight. And that person has no more access. The person that was hurting them has no more access. And that's where my wife ended up. She had locked that gate tight, and she had no love left in her heart for me. She cared about me, and she loved me in a different way, but the in-love feeling was gone, and there was nothing but self-protection there, and good for her. Absolutely. That's what I want for her. I want her to feel safe and secure and good inside herself, and never allow anyone to do the things that she went through with me and other people in her life. So by the time we started working on our relationship again, she had sealed her heart shut. And back then it was very difficult for me, because I'm not saying that I accepted that no problem, because I still had a lot of healing to do. I still had to go through all the insecurities that I was dealing with and trying to figure out inside myself. So her leaving was really firing that up. And I just had no choice to accept it, because that was her choice. And that was something I was really getting on board with back then, even though it felt impossible to say, hey, I honor your choice, even though it's a choice to leave me. That was very hard to do. But that's part of loving someone, is letting them go, letting them leave, letting them make their own decisions. And I had to let her go. And then she moved back to California, and I moved back to New Hampshire. And this person asked, okay, are you friends now? Are you civil in passing? Well, we're about 3,000 miles apart now. I never see her. We connected once on Facebook. She said that she was sorry that my cat died, and I appreciated that. I said, thank you so much. And that was the last contact that I've had with her. And that's okay, because I really wanted her to find a relationship that was worthy of the amount of love and care and generosity and support that she is capable of giving. And it wasn't with me, at least at that time. And so I let her go, and she's never reached out again, and I had never reached back. But I do feel like we left each other on good terms, at least cordial. And so being cordial is a good way to part, in my opinion. And of course, the last I saw her on social media, she was happy. She was in another relationship, and she looked happier than ever. And I was happy for her. So that's how much contact I've had, is seeing her on social media a couple times and her reaching out to say she was sorry that my cat died, because she knew my cat as well. And I appreciated that. And so I imagine this person's asking this question because she wanted to know what change looked like. If her ex or her partner is going to change, what will that look like? I hope I've answered that question. And are we friends now? And no, we're not friends, but if she reached out and said hi, I would say hi. But right now, my energy is going toward my present and my future, and being with my now wife and just moving forward. And I don't always recommend that the abusive person who has healed and changed reach out to their past exes. I don't necessarily recommend that, but I also don't not recommend it. But it's a very tricky situation, because some people who have moved on don't want to hear from the person who hurt them. And then there are others who have moved on who, if they got a message like an apology that said, I'm so sorry for the way I treated you, and I can't believe that I was ever that person and you didn't deserve it. I just want to let you know that I'm sorry, and that I hope you have been able to have a great life since then. And so that's tricky. Do you send that message if you are the healed former emotional abuser? Does the victim of that behavior want to get that message? It's very tricky. I don't recommend it, and I don't not recommend it, because I'm not sure which direction it should go. Some people just want to move on with their life, never want to hear from that person again. And some people, they had a real connection in other ways, and they do want to hear. So it is very difficult to give that kind of suggestion or advice. The last question this person wrote is, she also asked how she could unteach her daughter the manipulative behaviors that she picked up from her father. Her daughter believes her dad's lies, even though he tells her the complete opposite of what he tells her other people. And the good news is that her daughter's in counseling, and this person who wrote wants to hear my thoughts on this. My thoughts on this is, let her find out what her father is and who he is and what he does on her own, so she can convince herself. Unless he's very dangerous and you need to prove something right away. But if there's no real danger involved, and it's just all lies and manipulation, and she's just getting fed with all this false data, and she's come to believe everything that he says, then it's sort of like being in a cult. Like a narcissist is a good cult leader, and they will convince the people under them that what they're saying is the truth. And they will also convince that what other people say are lies. And they will also convince their students or the disciples or whoever, they'll also convince them that when somebody comes up to you and says, that person's a liar, and you shouldn't follow him, or you shouldn't believe him or her or whatever, this is the truth, then what they're doing is trying to sway you to do the wrong thing. That's what the cult leader will do. They will point out that others will tell you that who you're following is a liar, that what you're believing is untrue. And so the cult leader, or in this case, the narcissistic dad or whatever he is preparing his daughter for your objections. He's preparing her to hear what he's going to call your lies. When you prepare somebody for somebody else's objections, then you are more likely to believe the person who's preparing you over the objections, at least when you are brought into that cult environment. And that's how a cult grows. They keep saying, the other side says this, and they're going to say this to you, and they're going to say this to you. And if, quote, the other side comes and says that to you, guess who becomes more credible? The cult leader. And so because she already believes him, she already believes his words, you will have a very difficult time trying to convince her otherwise, which is why I would suggest perhaps you let her find out for herself without you looking like some crazy, irrational person, because that's what he's going to paint you out to be, saying that, no, he's wrong, he's lying, this and this and this, because she's going to be prepared by him to hear your objections, and it will only strengthen her belief in him. And that is something we have to be very careful about. The more you try to convince somebody that the person they believe in is wrong or false or hurtful, and they've been primed or conditioned to expect that response, the more likely that you will only push her farther away. And so we have to be careful with that. And my advice is just to continue loving her and showing her that you care about her. And, you're going to face the lies that she shares from her father with you. And you may have to address those. You may have to say, well, that's not true, or that's not how I remember it, if that comes up, but I definitely wouldn't bring it up. But if she said her father said that you smashed the car and you didn't smash the car, you can say, well, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. I suggest doing it with less emotional reaction, because the more emotional you are, I have a feeling that her father probably said, oh, she's going to overreact. She's going to act like the sky is falling when you say that. So just expect that. So acting with less emotions shows that you are calm and logical and reasonable, even though you might be all those things if you had an emotional reaction, which you deserve to have. But when you're dealing with somebody who might be this manipulative, it's better to show up as that calm, stoic person that is capable of hearing the lie and addressing the lie, but not reacting in a way that they expect. If you don't react in a way that they expect, then it becomes less potent for them to use against you, if that makes sense. And so if your husband is feeding your daughter lies, she needs to experience the truth for herself. She needs to figure that. That's my opinion. Follow the opinion of any professional you want. I'm giving you mine. Mine is let her find out on her own, because if you try to object at all, it'll only strengthen her belief and her commitment to her father, which is something that you definitely don't want. So it's always best, in my opinion, to come to our own conclusions about others, because that's when we are convinced the most. But if somebody comes along and says, hey, that person's a liar, and you have loved them and believed them for years, you might not accept their word. And in fact, if you care about them so much, you might defend them. They're not a liar. How could you say that? And if you defend them, then your connection to the possible liar is strengthened, and the connection to the other person is weakened. And that's what I don't want to happen here. So don't unteach your daughter. Just be a role model. Be a pillar of truth, so that when she discovers that her father may have some inconsistencies and incongruences, that you appear to be the sane one, and she starts realizing that her dad is not all he says he is. But I do believe it's not a good idea to try to convince anyone that the tight relationship they have with somebody else is wrong or bad or harmful, because if they're not experiencing it, they will find many reasons to justify it. And that will strengthen their connection with them, and again, weaken their connection with you. And believe me, when you are no longer the target of this, quote, cult leader, they find another target. They find someone else. And if that happens to be your daughter, she will experience what you experienced in a different way. And then you will be that pillar of truth. You will be the rock that she can rely on when she comes to you and says, I think Dad is telling me a lie, and this is what I mean. And then she'll share the story with you. And please don't say, I told you so. Please don't say that. Just say, really, tell me more. Say something that shows her that you're open and you're willing to listen, and you're not there to make her feel wrong or stupid or anything like that. You are there as her mom. So I hope this helps. This went on for a lot longer than I thought it was going to go on, but I'm glad I got a chance to talk about this, and I hope it has been helpful for you to listen to. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening to another episode of Love and Abuse. Share this with others who might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. The workbook contains a 200-point assessment to tell you exactly what's causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad. Gain clarity on your relationship today. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. You can also listen to the podcast over there, and there's even a safe listening button where all the titles to the episodes are changed so that you don't have to explain to anyone what you're listening to and why. Now, if you've discovered that you are doing hurtful behaviors to someone that you care about and you want to change that about yourself, sign up for the only program that walks you through the entire process of healing from being emotionally abusive. It is everything and more of what I went through, and it has changed thousands of lives and relationships and can change yours too. Visit healedbeing.com to start your lessons right away. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You are worthy of respect, kindness, and love, and you deserve to be accepted exactly as you are. Stay strong. We'll talk again soon.